Mortal Gods by Jonathan Fast. So this is episode 19 of the series I'm doing called The Masterpieces of Science Fiction. It's 140 books that I'm reading through, and this book is probably the most obscure book that's on the list. It was copyright 1978, and it's hard to find a lot of information about Jonathan Fast or this book in general. Very few reviews, very kind of low ratings of this on Goodreads. But let's just go ahead and get into it. So this book takes place about 200 years in the future, and humanity has moved beyond the solar system, and they've discovered other alien species. And this book takes place on one of these other worlds that humans mostly inhabit. And our main character, who is shown on the cover, he works for this company called Mutagen, and they are a genetic engineering company who dabbles in all kinds of things related to genetics. And the other alien that you see on this cover, she's from a world that's been having some issues with genetic issues with their alien species. There's been some radiation. It's done some chromosomal damage. A lot of their population is being born deformed. And so she traveled to this planet to have Mutagen look over these eggs and try to come up with a solution for their issue, because they haven't really evolved enough with their science and technology to address this issue. So our main character, he was kind of an engineer, but he was a failed engineer, and he's kind of their PR representative. So he's kind of in charge of taking her out and entertaining her while the scientists are looking over these eggs and trying to come up with a solution. The main character's dad, something happened to him, and he basically lives in this jar that's hooked up to these machines. He doesn't really have a body, and he still works for the company. He still makes decisions. He's on the board. He still talks to his son and all of that. So there's some weirdness there. And then also with this company, Mutagen, they are trying to push this next presidential candidate. So that's kind of the setup there. Now, our main character is going to take this alien out on the town to kind of entertain her. And another thing that's a big aspect of this book is these things called lifestylers. And they talk about them a bit, and you don't really know what they are. I was thinking almost like an influencer or something. But our main character takes this alien to one of these events, and it's an outdoor arena, and they go to it. And what it is, it turns out there's 50 of these lifestylers, and no matter who you are, you kind of glom onto one lifestyler or another, and it's very polarizing. That's your camp, and you shun the other ones in a way, or you kind of really pledge your allegiance to one of these lifestylers. So they go to this show. This trans-dimensional window opens up in the sky, and this lifestyler comes out and kind of does their thing. And these lifestylers are kind of immortal in a way. And like I said, each one has their different thing. But while they're there watching this show, something happens, and this lifestyler actually dies. And it's completely unheard of, throws everyone for a loop, big, huge deal. And that's kind of it there. And then they go out and do some other things, and then they decide to go to another one of these lifestyler shows, and the same thing happens again. And then our alien, she bails. She leaves during kind of the end of this show after this lifestyler dies. And so she's a suspect. She's taken into custody, and they basically think that she did it through some telepathic abilities. Here's another book with some PSI aspects in it. And our main character, he is kind of starting to fall in love with her, and he knows that she didn't do it. And so the rest of the book is kind of him trying to get her out of jail and unravel this mystery of who actually did this. so that she can be free and go back to her planet and save her species. Now, the plot, when I talk about the plot, it sounds pretty good, and the ending is pretty good. There's some twists and some things. I also want to mention that if you're kind of a affluent family and you're going to have a child, you can also have a clone born at the same time, and this clone is kind of living in stasis the other person's whole life, so that if they need an organ or a body part or something, they can just go harvest it off of this clone. And that happened to our main character at one point. He lost some fingers and they went to this clone and they replaced his fingers and he was like good as new. So that was kind of like an interesting idea. And, you know, it may have something to do with the ending of the book too. But let's just go into the pros and cons of this one. So pros, the plot is actually pretty good. I liked the whole plot of it. Maybe it was, you know, it was paced pretty good. Everything about the plot I thought was pretty good. I really liked the cover art of this book, and I think it really captures part of the storyline and stuff. I'm trying to get it to focus. And then also, this book was only 150 pages, so that was good. Now let's get into some cons. There is a lot of weird sexual overtones in this book, borderlining on adolescent. Some people would probably say very adolescent. And there's weird sex scenes with aliens and humans and humans and humans and humans and other aliens besides our alien here that's on the cover. And even these lifestylers, the idea of these lifestylers, they were kind of invented from a porn star back in Los Angeles way back when, or a porn producer, and he took some porn stars and made them into these kind of like godlike entities somehow. And so there's just, the whole book is kind of laced with those kind of overtones. And I'm pretty open-minded, but it was just borderline adolescent and just didn't really do it for me and kind of took me out of the story the whole time, basically. And there's some pretty interesting scenes in here if you want to really get into some alien sex and some other, you know, even human sex was pretty bizarre. Some other cons is just there's probably some plot holes. Everything wasn't really explained well because it was really only 150 pages, but I didn't really want anything explained more than that. This book hovers around a 3, I think, on Goodreads. I'm probably going to give it a 2. It's, you know, probably a higher 2. It's probably not the worst book I've read in this series. That one still might go to the Einstein intersection. But I just really wouldn't recommend this to anyone unless you're just really interested in the plot and you don't mind some of that weird sexual overtones. So that's it for that one. It wasn't horrible, but I'm glad it's behind me. And now, since it's still Space Opera September, I'm going to read A Fire Upon the Deep by Vernor Vinge. This one isn't on the list of the masterpieces of science fiction, although from what I can tell, it is a masterpiece. And it's been on my TBR since like 2012, so it's about time I get to that one. So look for a video review of that one in the future, and thanks for watching.